Hello everyone, welcome back to Pris Corner with me Pris. I hope you're okay wherever you are. Today on What's Real or Not episodes, I am discussing another new Japanese comic/manga series titled Werewolf Butler. The series was made by Megumi Muraoka, which only contains 2 volumes, so it can be considered as short series. And the series was still pretty new in my opinion because it's only published in 2018 or 2019. I forget, so forgive me. And if you want to know more about this series, I will leave the details in a link in the description box below, and if you want to support me further, I will leave the link in the description box below as well. So without further ado, let's jump right into our What's Real or Not episodes today. So, I already concluded that the series was based on 90% fantasy, 3% gray area, and 7% real. And as per usual, I start with the fantasy part, then move on to the gray area, and lastly on the real part. So let's dive in. So firstly in the fantasy part, like I used to be mentioned, the same with the romance series, because this is a fantasy series that things usually working out well at the end doesn't basically put any people at the disadvantage, and most people basically just accept that fact well without any resistance or much resistance in a way, and things usually resolve quite well and had a happy ending. Well, this is on the short series and the fantasy series, so it's understandable. Secondly, like you already know that the characters in the story, the main cast, like beside Philip, like Jean, Ray, and Eric basically are vampires, so they had to drink blood in order to survive, basically in order to still alive. But my question is, they drink basically animals' blood, they don't basically bite humans. You could call it a vegan vampires, so they basically only drink animals' blood, which I kinda basically confused, because how did they manage to get the blood? Even though it's already being explained in the first volumes, I think they basically buy an animal, they take out the blood from the animals, and the rest part of the animals, like the meat, is being given out to the charity or to the poor people who cannot eat basically. And well, they did a good thing by that. I admire that anyway. Top, really good, good action, I guess, from my opinion. But how did they manage to get blood every single time? And don't people get suspicious by it anyway? Why people basically, the humans, especially the charity, happy to receive the donation, of course, but don't they basically kind of curious that why people throw away the meat, Usually people stock up the meat, to for their food stock in order for them to eat it, but these people just giving away the meat. Well, but I think maybe people don't think really that much, even though I think when in the 18th century usually there's a lot of superstition still around, I guess, in a way. And move on, I think this part is like, Philip is always trying to kill Eric in many different ways, using different weapons and even setting up traps here and there, but Eric always managed to survive, which kinda impossible, Eric should have get a scratch or something, or just he is extremely lucky, or like basically Eric is the ultimate lucky people, I guess, ultimate lucky person that always managed to get away from basically critical circumstances basically that threaten his life in a way, which is very interesting in that way. But I don't think you always, even though no matter how lucky you are, you always manage to get away with things anyway. That's kind of impossible in my opinion, but if there is a person like that in real life, I would really like to meet that person anyway, because for me it just kind of baffled me, because I think it's impossible anyway, because I haven't met such person anyway. So that's why I put it in the fantasy part. And the other thing to mention is like, because Philip using many different weapons and really a lot of weapons, like axe, a lock, gun, pistols, shotguns, I think even. I just wonder why the house basically not getting broken by it, especially in the second volumes where he set up big trap for Eric anyway, but eventually he is the one who basically step on the trap, and finally he's the one being hurt by his own trap anyway, or being injured by his own trap. I just wonder why the house basically not broken or destroyed in the process anyway, and the house is always basically steady like that. And I do wonder why the other people, basically because the house was positioned close to one another, like if you traveling to London, I guess you could say you could see the house basically being stuck with another. So I wonder why the neighbors don't really get suspicious about it, or maybe because they already knew Eric and they just think maybe they just basically maybe watching TV or something, and just dismiss that as something that's trivial. I don't know why, because as you already know, Eric usually tell people around him that he's a vampire anyway, but they don't believe him anyway, because he behaves so much like human. You could call it he's a human-like, even though his ears kind of different, but his ears cute. Okay, move on. So I think it'll be more realistic, and if basically Philip managed to basically maybe make a scratch on Eric a little bit, to make things a little bit more realistic, I guess, in a way. Well, this is basically conclude about the Tom and Jerry chase between Eric and Philip anyway. And also, if the house basically getting a little bit, the walls kind of basically broken down in a way, and you can see the reaction of the neighbors, maybe it would be a little bit realistic in a way. But things don't happen that way, so yeah, that's why I call it this is a fantasy part, and that's why there's a lot of fantasy part in this series anyway. And I guess lastly, just like I said in the point number 2, they drink animal blood by basically killing animals and take out the blood. But I wonder how they managed to buy like cows, sheep, and other animals like that, and how they managed to always buy it. Because I think even though in the 18th century those kind of animals was pretty expensive, and I don't know what kind of occupations that Eric has basically, or what kind of work that he do basically. So I don't know if it's enough to basically support the lifestyle basically. Though they live a pretty simple and minimalistic life, but I guess with a business venture, the expenses could be covered up anyway. And we never know basically that Philip, how much that Eric paid Philip for his service anyway. So basically how much the paycheck that Philip received, we never knew anyway. These are some circumstances, I guess, that's kind of, I think, is a little bit confusing, because financial don't really mention a lot, do not really mention a lot in the story anyway. Do not get a spotlight so I don't really know for sure anyway, because in the 18th century, well, the value of money at that time and in the present moment is different, so I don't really know much for sure. And again, I'm not an expert after all. So that's what conclude the fantasy part, yes. And lastly, maybe the reaction of the bystander and the other people that only passes by. Well, because it's comedy series and short series after all, so they basically just just passerby and don't really have many reaction to it. They just like but it's still pretty good after all. But they don't really get sus or basically suspicious about basically the Eric's family and his behavior. Maybe because he behaves so human-like. So you don't really suspicious that the one who lives in Eric's residence is actually non-human creatures. Well, okay, I guess that's conclude the fantasy part. Then let's move on to the gray part, shall we? Now, for the gray area, I think it's just like, usually like vampire, werewolf, siren, or mermaids, or or other non-human creatures like Wendigo. I think, well, because there isn't any proof that basically any proof of their existence, so basically many people think that they are not exist, like ghosts and supernatural type of things like that do not exist. Well, that's why I put it in the gray area, because I really believe that they are exist at some point, maybe, but they're basically hidden from human being, like usually the type of stories that being presented. I think they hide from human anyways, or maybe just wait for them to destroy the humankind. I don't know, but I do think they really exist, because there are some sightings. Even though many people say that it could be Photoshop or just video editing, or people just make things up. Well, yeah, that's why I put it in the gray area, because I do believe they exist, but well, it's hard to really sure to say that they are exist, because we do not have a solid proof anyway. So it's kind of basically leave that up to your imaginations and your belief, basically whether you want to believe it's real or not. Yeah, it's up to you. And it's okay if you disagree with me, but I believe that these non-human creatures maybe exist and lurking in the darkness anyway. Well, I think that's for the gray area. Secondly, when Philip met with a siren that pretends to be a human or disguise herself as a human, when Philip want to hire her as an accomplice, it's like how she's so outspoken, maybe because she's telling that she getting close to man, or basically not because she wants money, but basically because she wants to have intimate moments, I guess, or to be intimate with someone. Yeah, basically like that. And she say it out loud in the public at the restaurant afternoon. Even in the afternoon, I mean, like she said in a restaurant full of people at noon, and that's draw attention, even though she managed to basically correct the statement. Just like, wow, that's hilarious, but it shows that how outspoken she is and how she basically managed to voice out her opinions, which I really find that interesting. And she does not shy away from sex and basically things like that, which is it's really funny. Even though she is I guess she is like a princess from the Siren Kingdom, things like that, but she basically run away and want to live her own life anyway. And yeah, it was pretty funny. And the thing that I want to mention is like, in the 18th century, I don't think there's not much woman who basically outspoken like her. Well, nowadays, even in the present moment nowadays, I think only basically a few or handful of women that dares basically to be outspoken like that, especially about sexting, because it's still deemed as taboo. Even though now the world is changed and starting to move like in the direction where, well, speaking about sex is not taboo anymore. I just treat it as a share of knowledge anyway, and some jokes maybe. Well, but that's the thing that I put it in gray area because the setting is the 18th century. I don't think there's maybe I think there's almost no woman that dare to be outspoken like that, especially if it's a basically human woman basically, or females in that regards. And yeah, I think let's conclude the gray area. Lastly, we move on to the real part, which only 7% anyway. First thing, just about the Jin the Look arc. If you already know about Jin backstory, it's just like he's being killed by his wife because his wife's already had an affair with some other man, and she wants to basically get rid of Jin and to basically elope with the other man because she does not love Jin anymore and already thinks that Jin is kind of annoying to her. Well, I think that part is real about the part that the wife killed the husband in the 18th century. Sorry, because I see a lot of basically cases, I guess murder cases that happened a long time ago in the 18th century or even 19th century. Could possibly happen that the wife, basically a wife killed her husband because divorce is not an option at the time because of the social pressure on her, and basically because divorce is deemed as taboo, and if you get, I think you cannot get divorced anyway. There's basically no law about it, and you basically cannot make the choice even though your husband is abusive towards you. I mean basically physically, mentally, verbally, or even sexually abused to you cannot do anything to it anyway. And that's why that's drove the woman of that era to basically kill her husband in order to get away with it because she can't handle it anymore. It's just too much abuse. Well, even though in this case, I don't think that Jin abused his wife. Well, maybe annoy his wife is the right term for it, but it's not really abusing her. But I'm not really sure because, well, again, doesn't mention the story anyway. But I think from my opinion, reading the story, I don't think that Jin abuses his wife. I think Jin really idolized his wife and really put her in the high positions and really an important position in his life. So yeah, I think the wife is at fault in here, but I think it's not very uncommon for a wife to kill her husband anyway and get away with it because, well, the police investigation at that time and in the present moment right now is, well, not really that advanced, I guess. So it's quite different. That's why many people manage to get away with the murder, like Jack the Ripper, for example. And yeah, that's the real part of it. Secondly, about the workforce, I guess, in a way, like how Eric had to work really hard, like work overtime, meeting with clients, greet clients, even like basically have lunch at the ferry, and basically had to work from morning until night and some overtime. It's really true because I guess after what you call the industrial revolutions at the 18th century, things pretty different for the workforce anyway, and basically business in general. So that kind of system and that kind of cycle really perpetuate itself until the present moment nowadays, that people still work overtime, meeting with clients and have a drink with superior, and have a drink with your boss and with your college or basically co-workers. Things like this still happen nowadays, and you have to work really hard even over time, even at the cost of your health and your mental well-being in a way, because the pressure is really much. So yeah, I guess that's pretty correlated to reality. Thirdly, I think about like business venture that Ray had. Basically, Ray asked Philip to basically manage the document in order to basically prepare the financial report, or in order to basically evade the tax. So doing some shady things behind, like tax evasion and things like that. That's really true even until the present moment. So I think it's still correlated to reality. And well, it's hard to track at the time, even because the technology is not as advanced as nowadays, and investigation doesn't really basically cover much ground, I guess. And nothing fourthly, but like the role of the butler itself. Yeah, the role of the butler itself, like Philip's role. As a butler, he did not only do the household chores like cleaning, cooking, and basically tidy things up, but he also responsible for some like mailing and like do some financial report, and almost like a personal assistant, a PA, and even an accountant at the moment, I guess, in the story, because I think that's the role of a butler at that moment. You have to be basically have so many skills and talented in so many fields, and be able to do many things like basically reports and mailings, and also basically doing the household chores, even cooking, and manage the servant, I guess. Yeah, the other servants anyway, even though he is the only servant in the house, which is pretty interesting, I guess. It shows you that being a butler is really a tough job and not an easy job to do. So it seems easy, I guess, and seems elegant or sophisticated, but it's require a lot of hard work and a lot of knowledge and educations in order to be qualified, I guess. Because I think Eric's come from like a noble family, or basically an influential family, or basically a wealthy family, like a nobles or something like that. Well, you can see because actually Eric's father had a lot of assets, I guess, because he managed to travel into China and settle in China. And also Alex already mentioned that many other vampires in his community finds him a little bit weird because he's so obsessed with money, even though they think you're already well off on your own, you don't have to work that hard. Well, Alex is kind of a little bit weird and human-like, so that's why he likes to work hard and had a goal. Because if you had basically a long time to live for, well, whether you basically find a goal or not, you're gonna get bored with yourself and basically kill yourself that time, I guess. And also the last thing that I want to mention is just like about Jean-Luc itself, that always try to attempt to do suicide, but well, you're already a vampire, so how could you die? That's one thing that I think is like, well, but maybe he just got bored with his life, because basically as a vampire you have a pretty long lifespan. You cannot die unless someone killed you. But maybe he finds it a little bit bored because he had no goal. That's why maybe Eric wants to have a goal, basically in order to basically enjoy his life in general. And the same with Ray, Eric younger brother. And maybe like the art or the visual itself will really represent the 18th century, even the cars, the transportations, and basically the manner, the etiquettes, everything on the visual part is really basically reflected the 18th century, which I really admire that from the author itself. It's really good. So far this year was, like I said in the trailer and in the preview episode, it was a pretty fun ride, really like a roller coaster, but it was really fun and full of comedy, which I really enjoy a lot, and a pretty good art as well. So I think that's conclude our What's Real Not episode today. Again, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy my contents, and sorry if there is basically mispronunciations and wrong grammar in some way, but hope you bear with it anyway and still enjoy it. And don't forget to stay tuned on my Instagram page in order to know what kind of new content that I'm gonna be uploading. And also don't forget to stay tuned on my KoFi Page and also on other podcast platform that you listen on. And hope to see you soon. Bye bye.